Hello, everybody, and welcome to Young, Dumb, and Sober. I'm Allie, and you're about to watch the second video in a four-part series that I had the pleasure of doing with my friend Amy from Thrive in Recovery with Amy. You could check her out on Instagram with that same name. The topic is sober heartbreak, sober breakups, grief, all that really fun, happy, light stuff, and how we get through it while maintaining our sobriety and our recovery. It's a really good conversation. I had a great time having it, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Hi, Amy.
Hello, Allie. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome back to Young, Dumb, and Sober. We got a lot of feedback on our first video.
I love it. I love it. I love having these conversations. It makes me just so happy to be here and to be talking about real shit that matters to us.
Yeah.
You know, not just that like staying sober one day at a time stuff. Like, I don't feel good in my body and things are weird and I want to have more pleasure.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, get down and dirty about it. I really enjoy it too. And today we're going to be talking about something a little bit less light. So sober heartbreak, breakups and sobriety, and grief, managing grief overall. I feel very connected to these topics because when I first got sober, I was going through probably the worst breakup that I had ever experienced. It was a really, really big loss for me. But in retrospect, I look back at it and I said, this is part of the reason why my sobriety is so strong now, because I got through something really, really what felt traumatizing to me. But I also know that it was so difficult to stay sober because it was like all these emotions and like the abandonment stuff. And then just like, I don't have my person to touch. And it was just like a lot. So like, where do you stand on the breakups and sobriety and the heartache and all that?
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, I just want to honor something that you said. Thank you for sharing that. Like you felt traumatized.
Yeah.
And then what you described was abandonment, a longing for holding on to something, someone, that connection, which is oxytocin depletion. Right? So let's just get right into the science of it. And I have so many stories I can tell you.
Yes.
But I just want you to know, it's like everyone that's watching right now, it's a basic biological response that we fucking make ourselves wrong for.
Right.
It's like, oh, the neurochemicals in my brain just like got depleted because my little person that fed those to me isn't there anymore.
Right.
Like that's just such a let ourselves off the hook.
It's a relief.
Yeah, it's fucking relief.
For sure. It took me a little while to get over it too. And I found myself blaming myself a lot. Like, why am I still hung up on this? And it's like, if I would have known that there was this biological component, maybe I would have been a little bit, easier on myself. Or maybe people can be a little bit easier on themselves if they're in the thick of it right now. And they're like, what's wrong with me? But like what you're saying here is like, you're just a person. You're just human.
You're just a human. Yeah. Having a human experience. And thank you for sharing that, because that brings me to what we were talking about before, right? Like right now, we are all having a collective heartbreak.
Yeah.
Just life as we know it is different.
Yeah.
And our hearts are breaking because the things that we connected to get those biological and chemical, beautiful like vasopressin and oxytocin and all the things that we connected to, we're literally sitting in isolation.
Right.
And we're getting our dopamine and our serotonin hits in a whole different way.
Right.
And if we're there blaming ourselves and living in the past and playing small and doing all the things and guilt and shame and all that stuff, like, oh, wait a second, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's just a natural response. And what are healthy ways to engage in the process if we make it fun?
So how can we make it fun?
Well, first of all, there's just a deep level of acceptance. And I just want to tell a personal story as well.
Please, yeah.
So I started getting sober in 2014. In 2013 is when I knew like shit's going sour. And I did an at-home detox that fall. I thought I was just highly anxious. And so maybe if I go to some CODA meetings, that would help and I could keep drinking, all these things.
Mm.
And then I went to treatment in 2014. And that's when I got serious about, I didn't understand the way that people were getting sober. And I knew that it was going to be a different road for me.
Mm.
And when I left there and I started having relationships again, I had no tools.
Right.
No tools to have relationships. And what the 12-step rooms were teaching me, and that I was doing smart recovery, 12-step, refuge recovery, life ring. I mean, I was in it, and aftercare.
I'm doing it all.
Oh yeah, I wanted to study all of the principles, and I did them all. Like, I worked the books on all of them.
Yeah, it's amazing.
None of them were giving me freaking like how to heal my heart. So 6 months into that first time, as soon as my heart got broken, I freaking went right for the thing that worked.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like a second thought.
Right.
There was nothing in between me and making that decision.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I did that a lot.
Yeah.
So first of all, again, like, let's just let ourselves off the hook.
Right.
And then I went through a major breakup sober. Like, my heart was broken in a million pieces. I was so confused. I got the flu at the same time, like a really bad flu too. And like, I was just terrible, sweating, having all of the biological and physiological responses of breaking up and being sick. It was like my body was just detoxing everything.
Right.
So again, it's totally natural.
Yeah.
The things that were happening were natural. And I want you to know out there, if you're watching, you're not alone. Like, if you just feel like you just want to like paint yourself on the floor and disappear, like, that's okay. It's like, that's what it feels like, because you're just depleted.
Yeah.
Totally depleted.
Yeah.
And so how do we have fun with it? Well, first of all, it's like just accepting it.
Right.
I just remember, oh gosh, I mean, I can still feel it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. When I talk about it, I actually get this like swelling, and I'm so moved on from it, but it's just thinking back to that time and just that place of just kind of like desperation and darkness and hurt. It's just like, wow, I can still kind of get there and feel it, which is maybe a good thing.
100%. I'm just going to turn my light up today. There's light coming in from the sun on me right now.
Pretty.
Oh.
You look like an angel.
We're talking about heartbreak. Oh gosh. Yeah. And so there's that deep acceptance of what's going on. And what I hope people are hearing is like, there's just biology and chemistry that are happening here too. There is, when we fall in love, so I'm going to kind of backwards into it, how we can make it fun.
Yeah.
When we fall in love, the first thing that happens is the serotonin hits get like, ooh, she's hot, dang, like, ooh, I want that hand on me, right? And then the dopamine hits start to come, like, ooh, and then they get closer, and then they actually touch us.
Yes.
And so then there's like, yeah, there's a cocktail of chemicals happening,
right?
And then you start to get to know them. And so then the oxytocin settles in. And that's the first thing that we feel when we're connecting to our moms or our primary caregivers. So that's the chemical. That's why, breastfeeding is so great, because that's the chemical that's being exchanged. That's the yeah. So it's a drug. It's an opioid.
Yeah.
And then there's the vasopressin, which is the drug that bonds us. The one that like is like, okay, I'm going to stay longer than one night.
I think I have like a extra of that one.
Yeah, because you really like that connection. You really want to stay with someone. And you mentioned abandonment earlier, right? So like, I get that. I do not let go of people.
No.
I am friends with all of my exes, and I forgive really easily.
Yeah.
It's just a waste to me to like hold a grudge.
Yeah, of course.
So we have all that when we first start. Then we break up and it all goes away.
Yeah.
So what does that remind you of?
Kind of like getting sober. Breaking up and then boom, it's gone. The one thing that was really contributing to my feelings of security.
Yeah, I'm gonna move so that the light's not totally in my face.
Yeah. Flag. Is that a flag?
Yes, yes. Exactly. 100%.
Yeah.
Right? So we're familiar with these feelings. Now, what's so different for us? We don't have the option of going to those old coping mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, it's interesting because the world teaches us that when we're having a heartbreak, to drink and to have casual sex.
Yep.
And to look outside of ourselves.
Yep.
And that's not an option. So this is a really important conversation because of course you go to that, I'm going to go fucking get fucked up.
Yeah.
Like that's going to help. And we're like, no, I'm not doing that anymore.
Right.
So then there's confusion. And then what came up for you, right? Guilt, shame. I think I remember thinking to myself, like, you know, in one way, when I had this last breakup, I was like, I'm not going to fucking drink over this. Like, it's going to be so empowering.
Right.
That was one fun thing to do.
Right.
But then there was the other parts of me that remembered every time I did.
That every time you went
back.
Yeah.
And so I was like confused because I had all these feelings of guilt and shame.
Right.
And all these feelings of like, fuck yeah, I'm going to do it different.
Right. Right.
And I was like, this is so confusing. Such a great conversation.
For me, that was what introduced me to yoga, because I was so lost that I was finally desperate enough to find something else and go out of my comfort zone because I had absolutely no other option. And that changed my life. Like I ended up getting certified. I lived at an ashram over the summer. Like it changed everything for me. That was super fun. The suggestions that you see outside of the cultural ones that are super unhealthy, like go sit on your couch with a pint of ice cream and a bottle of gin and like, you know, swipe on Tinder for 4 hours straight. Like that's so not helpful. But throwing yourself into new hobbies, that worked really, really well for me, especially ones that were physical and like yoga helping me get back into my body. It was like a game changer for me. And I didn't know that it was going to do that at the time. It was just grace or by chance, but it was fun and it was helpful. I mean, every single time I left a yoga class, I was hysterically crying, but like, that's fine. That's totally okay.
Well, you were opening up parts of you. So I love what you just shared. So y'all listen to what Ali just shared, right? So like intuitively, you went to something that was going to ground you.
Yes, intuitively.
And maybe for the first time in your 28 years or however old you were at that time that this happened, you listened to your intuition.
Right.
And you went towards it.
Right.
So when we talk about gifts of a heartbreak, like that is a huge gift of a heartbreak.
I love that phrase. I love that phrase.
Yeah, like you just listen and you're like, I don't know. I'm going to go put my feet on this mat and freaking see what happens.
Yeah.
And then you allowed your body to release.
Right.
Which is the grieving process.
Yes. Yes.
So you actually let your body have a human experience.
Right.
You actually let your body be the animal that it is.
Yes.
And you did it freaking intuitively and you didn't second guess yourself, even though it felt weird to like have all these emotions.
Right.
It also maybe gave you the opportunity to like go, oh, wow, I was really numbing a lot.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely a learning experience. And I mean, I know yoga is not for everyone, but I highly suggest just trying to get into some kind of like physical activity right after a breakup, especially if you're sober or trying to get sober, just because it does something, it wakes something else up in you. Or me, I can only speak from my own experience. But my friend used to tell me that the hips are the graveyards of our emotions.
Totally.
So you start doing the yoga with like the hip openers and stuff. It's just like, oh, there's an ex-boyfriend. Oh, there's an uncle that I hate. There's that old teacher. Just kind of like all this shit just gets like unlocked.
It's amazing. And I've been on the mat for 21 years.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I mean, I freaking get it. And I love how you just described it because everyone can understand that.
Right.
Like, when it's too hard, you know, then one of my clients not too long ago, there's someone that there was some resentment towards, and he was like, he's in my hips. like he couldn't get into the posture, and he had to ask the teacher to come over because he just felt like he was going to explode with emotion.
Yes.
So listen to what we're talking about, y'all. This is so good and juicy, and I don't know what to do about the sun in my face. It's just happening, so I'm just going to go with it.
You look great, but can you see?
I can see. Yeah, I just have to move around. So sorry if this is like a lot of movement, y'all. Yeah. So when we talk about having fun with it, when we talk about it being a process, when we talk about the chemicals, what you're describing that happened on the yoga mat was that you were finding a healthy way to replenish your oxytocin, your dopamine, and your serotonin.
Yeah.
So if we think about that, how do we do that? We do that with healthy connection. We do that with pets, with animals, with just the unconditional love. Yes, look at the kitty. Yes. Oh my gosh, cats are so good for it too. Because I love cats because they'll just like walk away when they're over it too. They're just like, fuck off. So you really start to heal your abandonment and your attachment patterns with a cat.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. So if we think about this as like, how do you heal a sober through a heartbreak? You find ways, healthy ways, to replenish those chemicals that you were receiving from someone else. And the yoga mat is connection because you're connecting to yourself in this whole new way.
Yes.
Pets are connection because they're little souls in there. Who knows? Like they could have been having a heartbreak too. And they're like, I get it, Mom.
Yeah.
Come closer. And then, one of the things that I highly, highly, highly recommend is go for 30 days without contact.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, well, listen to this, please. Like, go for 30 days without contact. Go for 30 days of like, ooh, I need a lot of support from my friends. I'm going to like get my tribe around me. I'm going to have a mentor. I'm going to like do the things. Even during this time, it's not hard to do that.
Right.
It takes effort because all of your patterns are going to tell you to get a pint of Ben and Jerry's, to watch sad movies, to listen to all your favorite songs, to go on their social media and stalk them.
Yep.
To
so bad, but you do it. Like it's the
freaking human condition.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it hurts so bad and good.
Right. Yeah.
It's like we're so used.
I love this.
Yeah, we're so used to the suffering that we go for more suffering.
Yeah.
And we continue to choose it even though it doesn't feel good, like eating until you get a stomach ache.
Right.
And it provides some pleasure. What it does is it floods you with dopamine and serotonin.
Yep.
And so you're high as a kite, and then you're not. And then your stomach hurts, and you're like, nah, I feel sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we think about this in replacing the chemicals in a healthy way, through connection, which is like everything that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And I love the 3 Ps. So we talked about these a little bit last time, like pleasure, passion.
Yes.
Purpose.
Right. 3 Ps, guys.
Yes. How can we go towards those things? In a healthy way.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So again, the gifts of a heartbreak are, who do I want to be? How do I want to experience more pleasure? How do I want to experience more passion? How do I want to live sober on purpose? And those are big questions, right? So that gives the brain a lot to get to work on. It gives the body a lot to get to work on. I started, as soon as he left and I got really sick, it was like 4 months of being sick and grieving and all of these things. I started a yoni egg practice right away. And so I was like, ooh, like I need to experience pleasure in my body so that, I'm giving this to myself, that I'm learning. So I started all of these practices where I was doing like morning breast massages and, just being in the pleasure of me without any man. And then I affirmed. So he left on like Christmas Eve, and then I got the news that he wasn't coming back around January 1st. And he was going to get sober. So it was not a terrible thing. It was just like, this is not how I wanted it to happen.
On top of the holidays, like,
it was brutal. Fucking brutal. Yeah. Super brutal. So I've been through it. Like, I'm not speaking from like some high and mighty place. I was like trenches of like, oh God, I'm gonna die. And I decided with no uncertainty that I was gonna go at least 90 days with no other distractions from other men or women for that matter. Like I was just like, I'm not gonna freaking distract myself. I'm gonna heal like I've never healed before.
Yeah.
And it took us a while to get to 30 days of no contact.
Yeah, me too. It took me like 150 days to get to 30 days.
Yeah. And my recommendation is right away when that happens to rally your troops around you and just be like, I'm committed to going sober.
Right.
Right. Because that's language that feels good to your body if you're watching.
Yeah.
From this person for 30 days. And I'm going to tell them as well, like, no contact for 30 days. Like, let's reevaluate. Because there was always a reevaluation period, you know, like, did we do the right thing? However, with 30 days, we all know, like, we get those coins, we know this rhythm of 30, 60, 90. We just do as a sober culture. Right. It's ingrained, conditioned in us. Right. So I think that that's just a beautiful place to start. And in those 30 days with your tribe around you, while you're getting different hits of dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin and crying and going through the 5 stages of grief in no particular order, right? Then maybe you can move towards like, what feels pleasurable to me? Right. Ooh, what am I passionate about? Yeah. And how can I live on purpose moving forward?
And I think maybe it's a little bit easier to spot those things when you're at such a low place because they come so far and few between. So when that thing comes up and you're like, oh, wow, out of the 24 hours of this day that I've been so sad and miserable, something just made me feel good. Like I just felt pleasure from this thing. Like, how can I recreate that? Which is really, really nice. Because you're learning stuff. You're just learning more about yourself.
Yeah. And so like, let's both give an example of that so people get what that means. Because like we've been through it. We've walked through it. So for me, I love food. I just love food.
Yes.
And I just remember when my taste buds kind of came back to normal. After I'd been sick, like really taking so much pleasure in food. Like I realized that I really liked creaminess and I liked fat, and I would like let like just things like sit in my mouth for longer. And I was like, this is so pleasurable.
Right.
Yeah. What about you? What are some things that you noticed were more pleasurable when you were in this space?
I noticed that reading was like a huge thing for me. Reading was probably one of the only activities that I could do that felt like a healthy escape, that I could really propel myself into, whether it was like fiction or nonfiction. I just felt so at peace when I was doing it, even after the fact. So it makes sense that while I was reading, I'm not in my head. So it makes sense that I'm not like, I'm feeling a little bit better during the activity. But even after the fact, there was this feeling of like serenity. Now I lean on reading a lot. Anytime I'm anxious, anytime I'm feeling some type of way, I go to a book. I'm like a fucking nerd. Like that's what it comes down to. But like, I just love it. It's just something that calms me. And especially reading books about what's going on. Like during my heartbreak, I read Cheryl Strayed's Tiny Beautiful Things.
Yeah.
Ripped me apart, but in a good way.
I just love that. I love that because it's such a healthy thing to do. It brought you so much pleasure. Yeah. And the chemicals that you were creating by literally putting yourself in the story, right? Yes. When I read, I'm in the story.
Yes.
And maybe it's not books. Maybe it's watching something that's healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Sometimes you leave a movie and you're like, oh my gosh, I like feel like I was in an alternate universe.
Yes.
I really want to focus on things right now during this time because we might not be in movie theaters for at least another 6 to 9 months. So y'all that are listening, like we can do this at home.
Right.
We can do this in healthy ways. And you escaped. And then what happened was that serotonin, that dopamine had a long effect.
Right.
Afterwards. Right? Like you could still feel it afterwards and it provided you passion and purpose and motivation. So that's a great example of how it all fits together.
Yeah. And maybe we can some suggestions of books that you might like and I like, and I'll put a link in the bio if anybody wants to check those out too.
Yeah, absolutely. I love reading books. Also like to dig into something that's just like Harry Potter and, you know, like
yes.
anything that's really magical and like weird, I just love. And it's all trauma healing. So it makes me super happy.
Me too.
Yeah.
I like nonfiction in the morning and fiction at night. Fiction right before bed, nonfiction in the morning. It like works perfectly for me.
Yeah, another great tip.
Yeah.
Another really great tip for understanding yourself. You're coming home to yourself. So that's another big thing that happens during a breakup is we're left with ourselves. And if we went from that pattern of escaping ourselves right to the pattern of being with someone to feel fulfilled, and then they leave too, and we still haven't done the work around why we were drinking or using or behaving or porning or gambling, whatever we were doing, then that pattern again is going to come up strong to go do that thing.
Yeah.
So I don't want to like say that this is an easy thing.
Right.
And the tricky, beautiful part about what we get to do is ask people to support us.
Yes. Yes.
At this level, like I'm committed to staying sober, not only from the person, also from whatever I choosing to stay sober from. And I need some freaking help around here.
Right.
And we're so quick to be like, I fucking got it. I'm fine. Or we don't want people to see the depth of how sad we are.
Right.
Which brings me to that grieving process.
I think one of the more difficult parts, and this happened with me and it's happened with other people in my life that I care about, who I would like to see them move forward from a relationship and get sober from this person. But a lot of the time you ask for somebody's support, you ask for the support around you, and people support you, but then you keep going back to them. So then your support is kind of like, well, what are we supposed to do? You keep going back to this person who's, harming you in this way. And that just kind of like complicates the whole thing. I think it goes a little like deeper than that. Like for me, I felt like there was abuse there. So it was kind of like, I wasn't quite sure why I kept going back, but it was so hard for me to explain to people because it was so clearly harmful. It's tough. It's tough when it comes to like telling your support group, hey, I need you. I need to lean on you. But then when you do, and if you say, let's use the word relapse with this person over and over again, it's like, then what?
Super awesome, great, real thing that happens.
Yeah.
First of all, let me just give you some like beautiful thing. The reason that you keep going back is because it's a pattern that you've created to heal that original incident of abandonment. You're like, this is better than nothing.
Yes.
And it's familiar to you from your formative years. It just is. And we're not conscious of these things. Like the inner child work that I get to do with people is about this.
Right.
It's like, yes, of course you're doing that. I know. And the thing is that we have to be really careful and just purposeful about the support that we choose to ask. Like, who are we asking for support? So often people ask people from the support groups that they go to. Here's a really harsh reality about the support groups that we go to. You don't really know those people.
Right. They're bona fide strangers.
They're bona fide strangers that you have one thing in common, that you're choosing to get sober.
Right.
And those groups are not designed for anything other than to give you freedom from the substance, right? And a design for living that's based around the substance.
Right.
So, they have all their shit and then you're asking them for the support, and then you go back to your behavior and they don't meet it with compassion.
Yes.
What happens?
Yeah.
I mean, I see it all the time that one of those people gets triggered, and often sometimes it's the person that's supporting the other person that'll even go back to the behavior and go out, right?
Right.
There's a bunch of unhealed people trying to heal one another.
Right. Blind leading blind.
Exactly. And so asking for someone, like a coach, a mentor, someone who's been there, someone with some solid work, not just in sobriety, to be kind of the lead in that support system is really important.
That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
So and the quality of your support system matters.
The quality of your support system matters in a big level in all areas of your life.
Right.
As you've noticed, as you've up-leveled your life,
like
people kind of fall off.
Oh, hell yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah, for the better, honestly.
Yeah, another grieving process, and it's okay. So again, our hearts are kind of breaking all the time. And how we choose to look at it is the smart thing. Like I kind of feel like I break up with somebody every month almost in my sober life because I'm just like, oh, that doesn't work anymore.
Right.
You know, I've kind of outgrown this relationship.
Right.
And if the person's not doing their work, then I'm like, oh, well, sorry. Like,
You're lost.
yeah, I mean, it's just like, I just don't want to go there anymore. So
Right.
the quality of your support matters. Yes. Bring it all together as well. So is there anything that the Young, Dumb, and Sober community has asked about that we could answer right now too, that comes to mind?
People asked how to deal with getting over a divorce after being sober. I've never been married or divorced. I would imagine that a lot of the process is similar to grieving any heartbreak, but maybe you could speak on that a little bit.
Totally. So I've not been married or divorced. However, I've been in a lot of long relationships that felt like that.
Right.
And my clients go through it all the time.
Right. I figured.
You know, most of the clients that I'm working with have had some kind of big life experience, and they're like, okay, now it's time to like really take my life to the next level.
Right.
So, I mean, it gets complicated, right? Because there's usually children involved. There's a long period of all these chemicals bonding you.
Right.
There was usually some kind of rupture in the relationship years ago, and you stayed and 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 stayed.
Right.
And then you got sober and you're like, oh, I can't stay anymore. What the hell am I doing?
Yes.
Then your partner is like, wait, you're not playing the role that I thought you were going to play anymore. So then you choose to leave. And it's so fun, again, because what I notice is that the person that I'm working with is the age that they were when they got married.
That's
so
interesting.
Yeah. So it's a 50-year-old man acting like a 23-year-old man.
That's very interesting.
So I want
sense.
Right?
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
So again, let's let ourselves off the hook.
Right.
Right? There was a lot of probably unmet needs during that time.
Right.
And you chose sobriety for a reason. And now you're choosing divorce for a reason.
Right.
And your heart is breaking. And there's all those little parts of you, those younger parts of you that filled yourself up with a family and relationship and all these things, staying busy.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting in this apartment for the first time alone, in an apartment, not in a house.
Right.
And you're like, what the fuck?
Right.
So, you know, definitely requires support. Definitely requires support.
Absolutely.
Because the pathways to use with a 23-year-old's mindset, right? With all those feelings. Remember, like, you know, I just think back of that time and I was just like, get the fuck out of my way. I'm going to do whatever I want to do.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's why you see people go on spending sprees, on, you know, gambling sprees, and, you know, they replace that dopamine, that serotonin hit with those kind of things. And so again, you're right. How do you do it in those healthy ways? And we described those earlier.
Yes.
There's just a lot of added bonuses to this, to being married for a long time and then divorced.
Right. And I think it's a little bit more difficult, or just at least maybe more complicated because there's more ties, but keeping that 30-day or that 60-day or whatever that is to stay away from the person, you have so many more opportunities for a reason to speak with them that I think it becomes a little bit more difficult to stay sober from that person too. So again, it comes back to that support, and like that's why people like you exist. That's why therapists exist, is because we need to be guided through this kind of healing, because it doesn't happen all intuitively.
No. Well, and you're at this point in your life, you know, at that point in my life, again, if we're taught when we're in early sobriety that trusting ourselves is not safe, then we're not trusting what we know.
Right.
So it is happening intuitively. However, no one's saying like, yes, keep going, unless someone's saying, yes, keep going. And that's why mentorship. And that's why I started Thrive in Recovery. Because I'm like, this is a very huge unmet need in the sober world.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to go meet it.
Yeah.
And I needed it too. And, you know, I just want to speak one little thing that we didn't touch on is if you are co-parenting with a divorce, then you have to talk to that person in those 30 days. So here's the big thing that I give to people is like, become co-parent, right? A schedule. And that's all you talk about, you know, stick to the schedule, because your patterns will just come up and you'll step into each other's stuff so quickly and so easily, and you'll play the part. So the way that I like to talk about it is that we're kind of we're just saying that playbook that we were playing by doesn't work anymore. So we got to write new playbooks.
Need a new playbook. Okay, that makes sense.
So there's another P.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 4
More
P's.
P's. Yeah. So, so juicy.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know if this is what the question exactly meant, but it was something along the lines of what happens when a partner relapses due to the person's decision to break up. So I guess, say Petra and I are dating and Petra breaks up with me and then I relapse as a reason and I blame the breakup. It's like, how does the sober person deal with that I would assume guilt.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's almost like a lot of what's happening right now of that like survivor's guilt.
Huh, yeah.
It's very much tied up in that same thing of like, I have to feel bad because I caused this.
Right.
And really what you're doing is you're taking care of yourself, and it's new. And that person made a choice that of course they want to blame it on you. So you'll come closer. They want to hook you back into their stuff.
Yes.
I did that on purpose. I'm not going to lie.
I've done it too.
Yeah. It was not,
for sure.
I mean, looking back, it's like, it was unconsciously on purpose.
Right.
But that's what I was trying to do. Like, if I get sick enough, then you'll come closer.
Right.
So it's a way of what we talked about last week, trauma bonding.
Mm.
You know, like, I'm going to drink and get really fucked up so that you have to come save me.
Yes. Yes.
And and when we take that 30-day fast, let's call it a fast, that 30-day fast from the person,
right,
then it's easier to be like, oh, wow, I can really see that your old patterns are coming up, and I'm not going to allow my patterns to come up. Like, it's a tremendous opportunity to find purpose and pleasure and passion for the person who chooses to stay in the fast, that chooses to stay sober.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's where the freaking integration and healing comes all day long.
Right. That clarity.
Yeah, it's hard. And it's the freaking juice, the reason that you and I are here right now.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I hope if you're watching this and you asked that question and I butchered it, tell me it again and we'll talk about it next time. But hopefully that was helpful. We've touched on a lot of this stuff and it's all kind of connected, and I'm hoping that it reached somebody who's maybe going through this or who has gone through it, and it can give you a little bit of serenity or peace, so that what you're going through or what you've gone through is, totally normal, totally human, and there are ways that you can get through it and come out stronger, or at least more awake.
Yeah. And this word maybe is new to everyone, and I just want to introduce it, but more integrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll give a little story of what that means.
Yes.
Gosh, when I was graduating from college, it was a mess. My grandfather was really sick. He was dying. My birth mom had come back in, made this like cameo visit into my life. Oh. I had just found cocaine, so I was like using that with alcohol. I'd been afraid of it. So my life was just like so big. And all these things of just me like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I remember telling my grandfather, like, I feel like I have all these pieces of a puzzle fragmented everywhere. Oh gosh, all the feelings right now. And I don't know how to put them together. And that, just even that picture of it was like, oh, this is what integration is. Like, how can I love all of those parts of me?
Right.
And put them together in a way that makes sense, and let it be ever changing and evolving and healing.
Right.
Right. However, what I was doing at that time was using cocaine here and using alcohol here and using sex here. And then on this high of like, I'm the first person to graduate from college, and all these stories that were just fragmenting me further from who I was. Mm. So integrating is like, ooh, I get to put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah. And you see the bigger picture. Yeah.
And you see the bigger picture. And then you reserve the right to change your mind at any time, right, as long as you're choosing something healthy that your heart desires, right?
Right.
So then it goes back to pleasure, passion, purpose, writing the new playbook.
Yeah.
and we don't have to live fragmented. We can live whole.
Right. I love that so much. And thank you for sharing that too. It's helpful to hear other people speak about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think we've all been there. Some of us are there right now. So,
Exactly. And it's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Ooh, all the feels.
Feels, man. All right, Amy, it has been a pleasure as usual. If you guys have any questions for Amy, or if you want to contact her or maybe utilize her services, I think that would be great for people who are going through heartbreak right now. You can contact her at Thrive in Recovery with Amy on Instagram, and stay tuned for the next 2 episodes. We have a 4-part series going on, so lots of more juicy, good, sad, happy, fun stuff to come your way. And it's been real, it's been fun, and it's been real fun. Thanks again, Amy.
Thank you, Allie. Bye for now.
Bye. Okay, guys, that has been the episode. Please subscribe to this channel, hit the bell so you get notifications every time I upload new content. But I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, if you have any other questions for Amy, feel free to reach out to her at Thrive in Recovery with Amy on her Instagram, or you can drop a comment below on this video and I'll make sure that it gets to her. It's been real, it's been fun, and it's been real fun. Bye guys, see you next time.